In the last part, our heroes were caught off guard by the sudden arrival of the androids, and because of that, a number of them were killed. Piccolo and Granola were the first to fall against 17 and 18's unlimited stamina, followed by Yamcha and Tien before they can get a chance to enter the Room of Spirit in time. And lastly, Krillin, who sacrificed himself to destroy both 17 and 18, leaving 16 to fight a newly awakened Super Saiyan Goku. But even with his newfound strength, Goku let his guard down, believing that 16 deserved better, and that mistake almost cost him his life. Fortunately for our carrot-themed hero, Gohan was able to tap into a new power, using both the Ikari form and the legendary Super Saiyan transformation that put an end to the android threat. Now with them out of the way, all that was left for them to do now was to prepare for the ever-looming threat, Frieza. Age 769, the year of Frieza's arrival. Goku and Gohan trade blows as the sun begins to set. Completely exhausted after a long day of training, both warriors continue to push themselves. Come on Gohan, you gotta get angry. Try to remember that feeling you felt back then, Goku says. As the training session continued, Gohan tries to take his father's advice. He lets his anger consume him, and for a second his eyes go from an emerald green to a sickly yellow, and his ki explodes. However, as soon as he transformed, the young warrior collapsed. I can't. We've been at this for the past 2 years, and I still can't control it, Gohan says. Goku walks over and comforts his son, telling him that it's okay. Gohan shakes his head in frustration. What's going to happen if I can't get a hold of this power? I know that you're betting everything on me, Dad, but I don't think I can do this, Gohan says. Goku takes a seat next to his son and stares into the sky. It's going to be fine, Gohan. You're not the only one who's been training as hard as they can. I know you feel as if it's all up to you to save us, but remember, we're all striving for the same goal, Goku says. Over at the lookout, Piccolo and Granola go toe-to-toe with one another. Piccolo closes the distance and lands multiple precise attacks on Granola's vitals. The Cerealian reels back in pain, telling the Namekian, seems as if you really got a hang of it now. Both of the warriors rush the other, and the battle would continue. The more the fight went on, the more they traded blows on each other's vital points. After exchanging a few attacks, Granola sends the Namekian flying. Piccolo catches himself and unleashes a ×20 Kaioken and rushes in. Granola in turn unlocked his second Cerealian eye and met the Namekian halfway. They both go for each other's vital points, but in the last second, red flames engulf Granola as his power exploded and he lands the finishing blow first, putting an end to their sparring match. You see, after the events of the android threat, Granola grew a newfound respect for Piccolo. So much so that he'd rather train with him instead of alone, like he did in the past, and because of this, over these past 2 years, in an attempt to grow stronger, Granola and Piccolo taught each other their techniques. Piccolo taught Granola the basics of wielding the Kaioken, and with that the Cerealian can now tap into the lower levels of the Kai's technique. As for what Granola taught Piccolo, the Cerealian showed the Namekian where and how to strike vital points. And although this would be difficult for Piccolo at first, due to not having an eye specialized in this, he'd eventually adapt and learn, adding a new fighting style to his arsenal. Over at Master Roshi's house, Tien sits back as he watches Yamcha and Krillin begin to spar. Yamcha unleashes a ×20 Kaioken and goes on the offensive. Krillin for the most part is on the back foot due to not being able to use the Kai's technique, but thanks to training with warriors that do, he's gotten strong enough to at least keep up. The fight would go on for a while with Krillin being on the defensive, that is until Yamcha fires off an extremely powerful Kamehameha that crashes into Krillin. However, the attack seemingly vanished as soon as it made contact with the Earthling. Took you long enough, Krillin says. When the smoke clears, Krillin can be seen with his arm extended out, wearing a gauntlet that had a red note on it. He'd then rush in and land powerful blows on Yamcha, taking control of the fight. The two warriors would continue to go back and forth, and Krillin, knowing that he doesn't have much time left, puts all the absorbed ki into one final blow and incapacitates Yamcha. You see, unlike Granola and Piccolo, who found success in their training methods, the Earthlings unfortunately hit a wall. Although they spent the past 2 years pushing themselves past their limits, they couldn't find a way to push the Kaioken any further, which for them was their trump card, without running the risk of damaging their body beyond repair, especially without the presence of the Senzu beam. As a result, they began to look for other ways to gain strength, and they'd eventually decide to look towards their previous foes in order to progress themselves. Yes, they try to convince Bulma to turn them into androids, however Bulma's conscience wouldn't allow her to take someone's humanity away from them, even if they asked. But still looking to help, she'd find a solution that aids our heroes without having to sacrifice her conscience. With the use of 19's discarded hand, she'd invent something new. She developed absorption gauntlets. Gauntlets that function similarly to how 19 and 20's energy absorption nodes work. However, since humans don't have a way to store stolen ki within their own bodies, Bulma designed the gauntlets to be able to store the ki within themselves, strengthening the attacks and the ki blast attacks of the wielders for a short time until all the stolen ki was expended. And with these, the Earthlings are able to augment their attack potency depending on their opponent. Back over with Goku and Gohan, their training would come to an end when Goku senses a familiar ki heading their way, and not long after, a young man landed near them. It was Trunks. The young Cerealian greets the two Saiyans, and Goku lets Gohan know that Trunks was the man from the future. "So you're finally back. You sure took your time," Goku says. Trunks smiles at the Saiyan and tells him, "I told you I'd be back when it was safe enough for me to return." Goku laughs and acknowledges his response. The Saiyan would then ask him how he's been, and Trunks' happy demeanor would begin to change. "Could be better. We're still on the run from Frieza, and each planet we go to has been increasingly more dangerous. The more people I save increases the risk of us getting caught. Lost a couple people due to that. Luckily though, Mother developed a cloaking device, and that's how we've been managing to hide so effectively, even with our numbers," Trunks says. Intrigued, Gohan asks what the future is like, and Trunks lets him know that a majority of the planets were overrun by Frieza's influence, filled to the brim with his cronies that enslave entire planets to work for him and destroy those that dare to defy him. But not trying to linger on his timeline, Trunks changes the subject, asking the two warriors, "So how's the training going? You find something that might give us a shot at taking down Frieza?" Gohan looks at his father, and Goku informs Trunks on the events of the android threat and the form that Gohan tapped into. "Cyborgs, huh? My father did mention something about robot people, but he never made a big deal about it," Trunks says. He then asks to see Gohan's form in action, challenging the young Saiyan to a sparring match. However, to his disappointment, Gohan let him know that he can't tap into it long enough for it to matter, and the battlefield falls silent as Trunks clenches his fists. 3 days. Frieza shows up in 3 days, and you're telling me that our best shot at standing up against that monster can't even use his own power? If that's the case, then we're doomed, Trunks says. And after a few minutes, Trunks apologizes, letting the Saiyans know how serious of a threat this actually is, and that he doesn't want another timeline to suffer the same fate as his. Well, if 3 days is all we have, Gohan and I can still enter the time chamber one last time, Goku says. After informing Trunks about what the chamber was, he agrees that it was a great idea. However, he suggests that he go in with Gohan, telling Goku that he has an idea of how to coax that power out. And if all else fail, I got a last ditch technique I picked up in my time that might work, and I'll need his help to pull it off. He then looked Gohan up and down. Only problem is I don't know if a year is going to be enough time for it to work properly, Trunks says. Goku thinks about it for a little and eventually agrees. With that, the trio takes off and informs the Earthlings about Frieza's rapid approach. Goku, Gohan, and Trunks land on the lookout. "Goku, what brings you here?" Granola asks. Trunks freezes, staring daggers at his father. Piccolo and Granola make their way to the trio. They all greet each other with Trunks keeping his eyes trained on the Cerealian. Goku informs the two about everything and lets them know why they're here. 3 days, huh? It's about time that bastard showed up. I've been itching to make him pay for what he did to my people, Granola says. He then averts his attention to Trunks. "So you're from the future. Tell me, what you got against Frieza?" Granola asks. Trunks looks away as he says, "Just trying to protect the people that I care about. That's all." Goku would then ask Kami if there was a way to go into the chamber more than twice, remembering Trunks' comment about needing more time. And after some deliberation with Mr. Popo, Kami says that it is indeed possible, but it'll take a day to get ready. If you remember, Mr. Popo has modified the time chamber in Super in order to allow multiple uses, and he'd simply do this here. And once the modifications were done, Trunks and Gohan entered the chamber for the next 2 days. The day of Frieza's arrival finally came, and our warrior stood atop the lookout waiting for the Emperor to show his hand. Tension ran high as every Z-fighter mentally prepared themselves. Everyone except Gohan and Trunks, who were still finishing their training in the time chamber. As they waited, they began to sense an immense amount of ki approaching them. Frieza had arrived. His massive ship hovered above the earth, and the warriors waited for the Emperor to exit, but he never did. Instead, 3 space pods fired out from the main ship and headed in different directions. And because of that, the Z-fighters all split up, going after a pod. Krillin, Tien, and Yamcha go after one, followed by Piccolo and Granola going after another, leaving Goku to face off against one of the pods alone. When the Earthlings arrive, the pod begins to open, emitting a gas as it did, and a strange looking man walked out. "Hey, I'd advise you leave while you still have the chance," Yamcha yelled out. The strange man surveyed the area and began to scan for any signs of Namekian life. He was a prototype for 7-3. Is he ignoring me? Yamcha asks. Frustrated, he tries to go into battle but gets held back by Krillin and Tien, who tell him that they shouldn't make any reckless decision. We don't know how strong he is, and something about him isn't right, Krillin says. The android continues to scan the area and he'd look in 3 different directions. He had sensed where every Namekian was, and with that he tried to take off. Hey, he's getting away, Yamcha yelled out as he chased after him. He lands a powerful kick that sends the android into the ground below. Serves you right for ignoring us, Yamcha says. Krillin and Tien catch up, and once the smoke clears, the android stares daggers at Yamcha. You guys sit back. I think I got this. As soon as he says this, the android teleports right in front of the Earthling and lands a powerful punch, commencing their fight. Over with Granola and Piccolo, once they arrive, a tall, bald alien walks out of the pod. It was Tagoma. Well, if it isn't the Cerealian that took out the Ginyu Force. Oh, and what do we have here? A Namekian? How lucky am I? Lord Frieza will be ecstatic. Now which one of you wants to die first? Tagoma says. I'll take my chances, Piccolo responds. He removes his turban and cloak and rushes in. Tagoma and Piccolo trade blows, and Piccolo is able to land the first attack, drawing blood. Piccolo then sends him flying and releases a powerful explosive wave that makes contact. Not bad. I thought that your entire race was filled with a bunch of weaklings, but you're different. This is going to be fun. Tagoma says as his power explodes, causing everything in the vicinity to shake. Over with Goku, the Saiyan lands, and when the pod opens, a young man steps out. His scouter goes off and he turns his attention towards Goku. I'm looking for a man named Kakarot. Would you happen to know where he resides? The man asks. Kakarot. You wouldn't happen to be a Saiyan, would you? Goku asks, looking at his tail, confirming his suspicion. Answer the question. I'm looking for the man who killed my brother, Tarbo yells. Goku realizes who this man was, and memories of Vegeta begins to flood in. I didn't kill your brother, Goku remarks. No, so you are him, Tarbo says. His ki explodes as the ground begins to shake, and his hair flickers from black to gold. He lets out a roar and ascends into the Super Saiyan form. Tarbo rushes in and lands a punch that sends the Saiyan flying. He begins to beat down the Saiyan with little effort. Goku releases his ki while on the defensive and goes into his Super Saiyan form. And he catches one of Tarbo's attacks and tells the young Saiyan, I didn't kill your brother. I tried to save him. Lord Frieza showed me everything. I heard your name over the scouter comms. You're the only one that could have stood a chance against him. Over 9,000. I don't know how you managed to kill him with that power level, but it doesn't matter now, Tarbo says. He then kicks the Saiyan away and gets chased. Back over with the Earthlings, Yamcha and the android go back and forth with the android gaining ground. That is until he fires off an attack. Yamcha seizes this chance and absorbs the ki, activating the gauntlets. Now it's my turn, Yamcha says, as he unleashes a ×20 Kaioken. He bursts forward and begins to bash the android around. Every strike he lands hits with the force of the attack that the android threw at Yamcha earlier, then some. Yamcha breaks through his defenses and lands a fierce wolf fang fist and seemingly knocks him out. The Earthling lands looking down at his opponent, and the stolen ki from the absorption gauntlets dissipate as the warrior begins to walk towards his allies. Yamcha, look out! Krillin and Tien yell out. The android gets up quickly and grabs the back of Yamcha's neck. The Earthling hits his hand away and backs up. So you're still kicking, eh? Guess I gotta hit you harder, Yamcha says as he goes back into his Kaioken state and rushes in. But to his surprise, the android does as well and begins to easily overpower the Earthling. Throughout this short battle, the android begins to target Yamcha's gauntlet and manages to destroy one of them. After a short combo that leaves Yamcha defenseless, the android tries to finish him off, but Krillin and Tien finally interfere, aiding Yamcha as much as they could. However, as much as they tried, it seemed as if they couldn't overpower the android. That was until Krillin had an idea. Krillin backs away from the fight and allows Yamcha and Tien to continue the battle. Because of his absence, Yamcha and Tien fall behind as the android begins to gain ground. Tien, catch! Krillin yells out. He fires off a fully charged Kamehameha at the Triclops and Tien extends his hand in order to absorb it. Oh, I get it, Yamcha says. He then charges up a spirit ball while Krillin and Tien did their best to keep the android distracted. Once the spirit ball was at full power, he throws it at Tien and he absorbs it. With the use of the ki given by both Yamcha and Krillin, Tien manages to stalemate the android alone, and with the help of the others, he manages to overpower him. With one lethal combo, Tien manages to land a powerful tri-beam cannon that destroys the android. Afterwards, the warriors all take a seat a little exhausted after the battle. That guy was tougher than I gave him credit for, Yamcha says. The trio chuckle at this remark and prepare themselves in order to help the others. However, as soon as they got ready to go, a fierce amount of ki suddenly appeared. My. To think that 3-7 would be defeated so easily. I must say, I'm impressed, Frieza says. The Earthlings turn and face the Emperor, stunned by his presence and immense power. Nezumi, you know what to do, Frieza says. The Yardrat makes his way to 3-7 and retrieves his body, and afterward he teleports away from the battlefield. Now, where were we? Oh right, you three managed to defeat one of my strongest soldiers. It would be a shame if all that talent went to waste. So how would you like to join my force? Frieza asks. The trio trembles in fear. For Frieza, Krillin says, it seems as if my reputation precedes me. To think that the residents of this backwater planet would know me. How amusing. Yamcha and Tien yell out a war cry and charge in using their ×20 Kaioken. Frieza dodges their attacks and teleports behind them. Shame. I guess I have no use for you then, Frieza says. He fires off a death beam, but to his surprise, Yamcha turns around and quickly absorbs it. Back over with Piccolo and Granola, Tagoma and the Namekians stop their battle as they sense Frieza's ki arrive on the planet. Granola clenches his fist in anger. He's here. That bastard's here, Granola says. And not a second later, his ki explodes as he rushes over to where the Emperor was. Granola! Piccolo yells out. Tagoma knocks the Namekian back. Keep your eyes on the battle. It's already bad enough that you can't keep up, Tagoma says. Whoever said that I couldn't keep up? I have to make this quick, Piccolo says. He then unleashes a ×20 Kaioken. Tagoma's scouter goes off as he senses Piccolo's immense power. Good. This fight was getting boring. Come at me, Tagoma yells out. Piccolo rushes Tagoma, matching the alien in strength and speed. However, the more that the fight continued, the more fatigued Piccolo became. He'd throw powerful ki blasts at Tagoma periodically, but he could never land a shot. Once backed into a corner, Tagoma tells the Namekian, "This was fun, but I'm disappointed that it couldn't last longer. Shame that you never got to use that technique of yours." He then pointed all the previous ki blasts that Piccolo had thrown suspended in the air. "So you knew," Piccolo says. "Well, I guess it's now or never." He then shifts his fighting stance. The Namekian rushes in and they engage in battle once more. Piccolo struggles to land any attacks, but he eventually lands one. The Namekian strikes one of the vital points on Tagoma's arm with extreme precision and force, and Tagoma's arm falls limp. "What the hell? What the hell did you do to my arm?" "It won't move," Tagoma yells out. Piccolo seizes this chance and begins to go on the offensive, landing multiple precision strikes on Tagoma's vital points. And once the warrior could no longer move due to the pain, Piccolo extends his arm out, wrapping around the warrior and sends him flying into the sky towards his ki blast. And he unleashes a powerful Hell Zone grenade. Tagoma falls, incapacitated, and Piccolo takes his leave, heading to where he sensed Frieza. Back over with the Earthlings, they struggle to stand with their gauntlets destroyed, while Frieza stands there unharmed. I must say, you did far better than most. To think that those little contraptions could give you such an edge. Truly brilliant. Now, let's see how you fare against my second form, Frieza says as he begins to power up. When Granola arrives on the battlefield, he is met by a gruesome sight. Both Krillin and Yamcha lay dead, while Tien was struggling to break out of Frieza's grasp. "Frieza!" Granola yells out. Frieza drops the Earthling and begins to walk towards Granola. If it isn't the Cerealian. You know, killing my forces all that time ago was a blessing in disguise. I never knew I could find such strong soldiers until you did that. Shocking, isn't it? Frieza says. What the hell are you going on about? None of that matters now. The only thing that matters is me getting my revenge, Granola says. Revenge. How cute. Let's see if you got what it takes to achieve that goal, Frieza says as he rushes in. Granola unlocks his second eye and clashes with the Tyrant. The two warriors go back and forth, and Granola dodges all of Frieza's attack, and looking to get his revenge quickly, Granola unleashes a ×3 Kaioken and begins to land swift strikes to Frieza's vitals. The Tyrant falls back and coughs up blood, visibly annoyed. He tries to transform, but Granola won't let him. He lays on the pressure and Frieza can't keep up, and he'd eventually land a devastating combo, and he'd raise his hand in order to finish off the Tyrant. But he'd stop when Frieza began to laugh. All that hard work for nothing, Frieza says. What are you going on about, Granola asks. Hold it right there, Nezumi says. And to Granola's surprise, when he looks over to the yard rat, he sees him holding on to Monaito with a blaster to his head. Let him go, Granola says. Well done, Nezumi, Frieza says. Thank you, Lord Frieza. From 7-3's analysis, it seems as if there are 2 more Namekians on this planet, Nezumi says. Then I'll leave it to you to find and kill the rest. He then begins to power up. Granola tries to interrupt Frieza, but Nezumi presses the blaster against Monaito's head, telling Granola not to try anything slick. Frieza lets out a yell and his ki explodes, causing the area to shake. Once in his 3rd form, he congratulates Granola for becoming as strong as he was, telling him it's a shame that he has no use for a loose cannon. Nezumi, kill the Namekian, Frieza says, and the yard rat fires. Monaito's body falls to the ground and Granola watches in horror. His ki would then explode and he rushes the yard rat and he lands a powerful punch that sends the yard rat flying. He then runs over to Monaito and holds on to the Namekian. He rests his head on his chest to check for breathing, but to his horror, he was already gone. Piccolo arrives onto the battlefield and sees as this plays out. Frieza looks towards the Namekian and says, "Oh, so it seems as if one of the Namekians came to me. How interesting." Frieza! Granola yells out. With tears in his eyes, he blindly rushes the tyrant. He throws a powerful blow that gets deflected by Frieza, and the Emperor counterattacks and lands a massive blow that knocks the Cerealian to the ground. Piccolo unleashes the Kaioken and joins the fight. Both of the warriors do their best to fight the tyrant, but they can't keep up. And eventually Frieza would knock them back and begin to charge up a death ball. Back over with Goku, the Saiyan can be seen looking in the direction of the tyrant. Monaito just died, Goku says to himself. Hey, I'm not done yet, Tarbo says. The young Saiyan struggles to his feet, bruised and bloody. For the last time, I didn't kill your brother, so please, stop. We don't have to fight anymore, Goku says, with a remorseful look on his face. Tarbo clenches his fists, and he uses the last of his ki to charge up a gun. Goku shakes his head and says, I have to finish this now. He closes the distance between himself and Tarbo, and before the young Saiyan could fire off the attack, Goku landed a strike on Tarbo's vital point, similar to how Granola did against Vegeta in the DBS manga and in part 2 against Goku. And with that, the Saiyan collapses. Didn't know if that would work. Thanks, Granola, Goku says, and he takes off in the direction of the tyrant. Back over with Granola and Piccolo, they struggle to get to their feet as the tyrant charges up a massive death ball. Take this, Frieza yells out, launching the sphere at them. The 2 warriors catch the attack and struggle to push it back. Frieza adds more and more pressure from the other side, laughing while he did so. Frieza! Goku yells out as he lands a massive punch that sends the Emperor flying, and with the added pressure gone, Piccolo goes giant and manages to push the sphere back with the use of his size and Granola's help. Goku lands next to Granola as Piccolo shrinks down to their size. It's about time you showed up, Piccolo says. Where's Gohan and that kid, Granola asks. Goku lets them know that from what he can tell, they're still in the chamber. As they discuss this, Frieza's power shot up, and they try to stop him, but Frieza's ki explodes, pushing them all back. A Saiyan, a Namekian, and a Cerealian. Seems as if I've gotten sloppy. To think that there'd be this many survivors, Frieza says. They all rush the Emperor using their maximum power, but even with that they couldn't lay a finger on Frieza. Although the warriors fought in perfect unison, with Granola and Piccolo going for vitals, while Goku led the charge in terms of power, it would all mean nothing the moment that Frieza went on the offensive. The Emperor tore through the warriors with little effort, beating them to a pulp. Every attack thrown by them was met by a devastating counter, and once the warriors were all exhausted, they watched as the Emperor begins to taunt them. Now, which one of you shall I kill first? Frieza asks. But to his surprise, none of the warriors seem fazed by this statement. Instead, he sees them all staring in one general direction. Is that Gohan? Piccolo asks. Frieza looks in that direction, asking them what they're looking at. The battlefield began to violently shake. In the sky, both Gohan and Trunks rocket towards the battlefield. They collide into the ground below, and when the smoke clears, they stare daggers at Frieza. You know what to do, Trunks says, as he heads towards the Earthman's body. Frieza stares at them and asks who they are, and when they don't answer, he fires off a death beam at the young Cerealian. Trunks' eyes glow red, and he manages to dodge the attack. He then grabs Tien and checks the other Z-Fighters. They're dead, Trunks says, looking towards Gohan. Gohan's hand twitches as he says, then I'll avenge them. And how do you plan on doing that, Frieza asks. Gohan's eyes turn a yellow color as he unleashes his ki, and a violent aura explodes from his body, and with a yell, Gohan ascended into the Akari's Super Saiyan form. With no words said, Gohan rushes the tyrant and begins to brutally attack him. Frieza tries to keep up, but nothing could have prepared him for something as fierce as this. The longer the fight went on, the more lethal attacks Gohan landed on him. But after a while of this happening, the Z Fighters began to notice something strange, and their suspicions were confirmed when Gohan landed a kick so powerful that it cut the tyrant in half. But instead of dying, his body rapidly regenerated. Afterwards, Gohan went all out, with every attack being a lethal one, but as if it was nothing, Frieza's body recovered faster than Gohan could damage him. What the hell did you do to your body? No one should be able to recover this fast, Gohan says, backing away from the tyrant. Frieza laughs and lets all the warriors know about his 3 wishes. Wait, did you know about this? Granola asks Trunks. No, if I had I would have let you all know. No one's ever managed to damage Frieza this much in my time. Frieza then tells them that they can try all they want, telling them that this battle would end with them exhausted and him eliminating them all. Gohan's anger overtakes him and he rushes the tyrant and keeps on beating him down. Over with the others, they all try to think of a way to defeat an immortal opponent. The Mafuba, Piccolo says. Goku remembers the technique and he agrees. He did inform both of the Cerealians. Only problem is Roshi and Tien are the only ones that know of it. Not only that, we need a sealed object to trap him in, Piccolo says. Piccolo suggests that he can go to Roshi in order to get the sealed object while they try to wake up Tien. And with that, everyone agrees and Piccolo takes off. And while Piccolo was gone, Goku, Trunks, and Granola did their best to try and wake up the Triclops. And after countless attempts, Tien finally comes to. Once on his feet, they let him know about the plan on taking down the Tyrants. And Tien agrees. Gohan continues to throw Frieza around, and although Frieza was immortal, he still felt the pain. It was torturous. He had felt every last fatal attack, and the more that this continued, he began to realize that this was worse than death. And as Gohan threw another skull-shattering punch, Frieza flinches, but when the attack lands, it's far weaker than before. And Frieza would realize that something was different. He'd look into Gohan's eyes and he realized that yellow tint was gone. Gohan breathed heavily, exhausted after everything that he had thrown at him. Gohan's out of energy, Trunks yells out. And with that, Frieza begins to go on the offensive in order to put an end to Gohan as quickly as possible. Goku, Granola, and Trunks all rush in to aid the young Saiyan, and for a time they're able to fend him off. And a few minutes later, Piccolo arrives on the battlefield, handing the sealed object to Tien, and rushing in to go help the others. However, the longer that this fight went on, they began to realize that they couldn't hold him still long enough to allow Tien to use the Mafuba. And in the midst of the fight, Goku asks Trunks, "Whatever happened to that last-ditch technique of yours? We're going to need time to perform it. You think you can hold off Frieza long enough?" Trunks asks. Goku tells the Cerealian to go ahead, and when the opportunity arises, Trunks grabs Gohan by the arm and rocketed away from the battlefield. With their numbers dwindling, Frieza easily took control of the fight, and after a not so long beating, they all stop when they see a light pierce the sky, and a massive amount of ki begins to surge. A figure bursts forward with extreme force and lands onto the battlefield. "And who are you?" Frieza asks. "Good question. I guess you can call me Gohanks. Everyone get back. He's mine," Gohan says. He unlocks his red Cerealian eye and goes into the Akari form. Granola takes note of this and begins to question who this man was and how did he obtain a Cerealian ability. "I'll try to go easy on you," Gohan says. He rushes in and he'd effortlessly overpower the tyrant. He'd tear through Frieza, enjoying every moment. And once Frieza was back into a corner, he says, "And how long will this little power-up of yours last? Your strength is impressive, but even with it, you can't kill me," Frieza says as he begins to laugh. "Long enough. Tien, get ready," Gohan says as he grabs his sword and rushes the Emperor and lands a shining sword attack, cutting the Emperor to pieces. "Tien, now!" And with that, Tien unleashes the Mafuba and seals Frieza away. Everyone collapses relieved, and they begin to celebrate their victory over the tyrants. And after a few minutes, Gohanks' fusion would time out, and Trunks and Gohan join the celebration. Granola walks up to the young Cerealian, telling him, "You know, I never did get your name. You did good out there. The name's Trunks. the young Cerulean says. He then unlocks his Cerulean eye, telling Granola it was good to see you again, and he'd walk away. Granola would be dumbfounded, and he'd eventually put two and two together, realizing who Trunks was. Granola smiles, proud of what his son was able to achieve. He then looked over to where Monaito was. He'd walk over and kneel in front of his father, and he'd begin to apologize for not being able to protect him. The rest of the Z-Fighters gather around the Cerulean and comfort him. Don't worry, Granola, we'll wish him back, Goku says. I know, it's just... Granola falls silent as he looks around. Wait, Frieza soldier. Where is he? Granola says, panicked. Granola begins to remember the last orders given to Nezumi by Frieza. Granola's ki explodes as he takes off to the lookout, and everyone follows behind him. They go at maximum speed, trying to get there as quickly as possible. Granola and Goku are the first to make it to the lookout, and when they reach the top, they're met by a horrible sight. Mr. Popo laid unconscious, bloodied and bruised, and not far from him, Nezumi stood above a beaten Kami, his blaster aiming at his head. The Yard Rat looks back towards the Cerulean and the Saiyan. No, they yell out as they rush Nezumi, and a shot sounds off, echoing all throughout the lookout. Granola closes the distance and lands a powerful vital strike that stops the Yard Rat's heart. And not too long after, the rest of the Z-Fighters arrive. What happened? Piccolo asks. He then feels a sharp pain in his chest as he collapses onto his knees. We were too late, Goku says. The Namekian laid eyes on his other half and realized what happened. He slowly began to fade and Gohan held onto him, tears filling his eyes. And not having a lot of time left, Piccolo tells the young warrior to be strong, and he's proud of the man that he was becoming, and with a tearful goodbye, Piccolo fades away. The lookout falls silent. Although our heroes were victorious over the tyrant Frieza, his goals were still achieved. With the deaths of Monaito and Kami, our heroes don't know of a way to bring back their fallen comrades. And with the Dragon Balls gone and the Senzu beans being extinct, the battles of the future are looking far more grim than ever before. But with that, this puts an end to this part. Thank you to everyone that watched this video. I hope you had a great day. Peace, peace. Deuce, deuce.